Now let's take a look at the standalone application Adobe Bridge. Under your File menu, you'll find Browse in Bridge. In CS5, there used to be a little button across a bar along the top called the Application Bar. In CS6, they found that the application bar was taking up too much very valuable screen real estate or territory, so they removed the application bar, although they did leave the workspace switcher. So you can use File, Browse in Bridge. They did leave in Mini Bridge the BR button. That will also launch Bridge. So you can click Mini Bridge and click Launch Bridge, or choose File, Browse in Bridge, or hit the BR button that you'll find down here to reveal an image in Bridge. Once Bridge is launched, it's a good idea to maximize. As a heavy Photoshop user who does a lot of personal photography and photography while I travel, I live in Bridge. Everything I open comes from Bridge. Every now and then I'll jump down to Mini Bridge, and because of the new layout in CS6, I find myself going there more and more often. But Bridge has one feature that I think is worth the price of the upgrade, or the price of admission if you bought this DVD. It is batch renaming. For anyone that manages large amounts of images, the names are very essential. And I hate the default name that my camera gives something. DSC something, or IMG something. So in Bridge, I'm going to make the previews a little larger by just sliding this to the right or left, and I'll choose Edit, Select All. The Tools menu contains most of the things that I use in Bridge, and the first choice is Batch Rename. Now, Bridge will batch rename anything. It can rename Word docs. It can rename PDF pages extracted as separate files. Bridge is simply a replacement for your operating system. It lets you navigate to any folder on your hard drive, or any inserted CD or flash disk or USB disk that you may have. So you could rename directly on your camera if your camera is plugged in and mounted on your desktop before even copying your files over. The first thing I do when I dump a batch of images, either from my phone or from my camera, is rename them. So under Tools, Batch Rename, I'll scoot this window up a bit. I'm going to not have such a long file name. I don't ever put the date and time in the file name because the metadata panel in Bridge shows that to me. So I will hit the minus to the right of date and time to remove that. And if you're working along with the video, you can pause now, go find a folder of images of yours, and do the batch renaming with me. Or find it later, come back and watch the video again. I'm also going to get rid of this second text field, and I'll start by naming this Vienna, with an underscore as a separator so that if I email this, it doesn't get %20 in the file name. Spaces are illegal on the web, and that's why often your email attachments file names change. The last time I renamed images, it must have been 7 of them. Bridge remembers that, so it started at 8 for me. In case you're shooting multiple cards of camera images, it remembers the last one in the sequence that it renamed. So if it's a wedding and you filled up 5 cards and the last batch you downloaded ended at 200, when you insert the second card of images that you shot at the wedding, it would start at 201. I'm going to type 1 here, so it starts at sequence number 1. And since there's only 18 files, I'll use 2 digits for the naming. I never recommend anyone use a 1-digit naming convention because 1 digit would sort a list of 10 as 1, 10, then 2, 3, 4. The 2-digit will go 01, 02, 03. Just a good habit. And practice makes permanent, so practice good stuff. The photographers I work with like to check this box, preserve current file name in the XMP metadata. Metadata just means extra data about the file, stored in the file. That way they know their original count for the images that they shot on their camera. I've also seen this used at large companies that have millions of images in a database, they might be pulling down a product shot and then they're modifying it to clone someone out or change a shirt color, for example. So they would preserve that original file name so that when it goes back in the database, there's a reference to both the image it started with and the new corrected image. But in this case, I don't care what my camera named it. I just want it renamed. So when I hit rename, boom, it's that fast. It's already done. Once it's finished naming, let's organize Bridge to a more useful workspace, the way I like it, basically Kelly's workspace. So as you look at Adobe Bridge, you have your menu bar. You have an application bar which will let you go back and you could surf through and see what these offer. You can rotate images in advance if you're shooting at a side angle, but none of mine are at the improper orientation. And you have different workspaces. This is your workspace switcher. If you stretch that, you could see a few more, like the light table workspace, which gets rid of everything and just shows your images. Or the preview workspace, which if I click on Vienna, oops, I rated the image by accident. I will try to unrate that. There we go. This is a star rating column. But it's good that you see that. Sometimes mistakes teach you things. So I'm going to click on just the icon itself, and it brings a large preview into the preview window so I can get a better look at my image. I could also make the preview size bigger or smaller for this content area if you want to see more of them. We'll start at Essentials because that's how it comes out of the box. And what I like to do is use this more valuable screen real estate for my thumbnails, my content. So I will drag Preview down to the lower left, Metadata and Keywords down to the lower left. I'm dragging them by their tab or their name. Then I will double-click, or if I double-click again, it's back. You can grab this darker gray area, looking for kind of these three little lines as a spot to grab, and drag it to the right so that content has more room. Finally, I can just see a little bit of the P in Preview, so I click on Preview, and I make my preview take up about half of my screen. I also like to get about 4 images across in the content area. So one click, not a double click, will preview each image. Finally, I don't like the favorites view. I call this the child-proof view or super easy view. In the favorites view on Windows, it's very helpful because it'll show my pictures, and the same on the Mac. You could see the pictures folder on my Mac. I'm going to click Desktop, and I prefer the folders view. When I click on folders, I can hit this little down triangle to expand the desktop and see the 2 folders that are sitting on there. The third is an alias. That's why it doesn't show up. That's what the little arrow means. Then I can expand Assets, click the triangle to the left of Jumpstart, and click directly on Vienna. If I was still in the Vienna folder, it would have shown me that automatically. But this way there's no mystery about what folder you're looking at. If I scroll down, I can expand my computer and see all the drives that I have inserted. Quite a few, because I do a lot of image work. But this is your tour of Bridge. The last thing I'll point out is if I want to see this image bigger, I click on it once and then double-click on Folders, and it collapses folders. The wider I make this, the more detail I get. And to see my folders again, I double-click and it expands again. If I still want this larger but want to see some of folders, then I can pull that up. So once I've finished with this workspace, I'll choose Window, Workspace, and New Workspace. This way I can name my Kelly workspace, and when I hit Save, Kelly will always show up here at the top in your workspace switcher area. You can also get to your workspace by clicking the arrow to the right of Metadata, or by choosing Window, Workspace, Kelly. Launch Bridge through File, Browse in Photoshop, and see if you can work along the video to arrange your workspace as I've shown. If you ever want to reset the workspace, if I go to Essentials, it's reset, but if it doesn't remember the position, under Window, workspace, you could choose Reset Standard Workspaces. That doesn't maximize anymore, but I'll simply hit Maximize. I hope you enjoy Bridge as much as I do.